What's up, YouTube? I'm Mike. Today, after I made that previous video talking a little bit about my past and my biker days, it kind of inspired me to go back a little further and tell a story that I have been wanting to tell for a long time and just have been putting off because it's probably going to take an entire series of videos. And it's kind of an emotional period in my life that I honestly don't really like to fucking dredge up. But you guys seem to really enjoy the prison series, and fuck it, I need content, and so I'm gonna fucking tell it. So what we're talking about today is what it's really like to be homeless. I mean homeless, like living in a fucking tent in the woods homeless, which is what I did for about 1 year. From about the age of 21 to 22, just a little after that. So like I said, this is going to take a series of videos to cover this period of time, and it was over 20 years ago. So I'm going to do my best to try to recount this story in his best chronological order and detail as possible. So forgive me if things get a little confusing or out of place, or if I have to double back. I'm going to try to make this as accurate as possible. So before we get, I feel like it's relevant to the entire story to understand how I became homeless. So I had never been, like when I was 19 years old, I met a girl that I knew from high school. Her name was Shauna. She was like the fucking love of my life at the time. She was like the popular girl, and I was the weird nerdy guy that was never supposed to be able to get this girl. And I got this girl, and I was madly fucking obsessed with her. She carried my balls around in her purse for the better part of a year and a half until we finally broke up. And when we broke up, it fucked me up. It ripped my heart completely out. Ultimately, I caused her to leave, and then she tried to take me back, but she basically gave me an ultimatum that I was not willing to agree to. She wanted me to move out of state with her, and I didn't want to do it. And so ultimately, like I ended the relationship because I wouldn't agree to her terms, basically. And it was the most excruciatingly painful thing that I had certainly ever been through at that point. And it was still probably the most excruciatingly painful, emotional, like a relationship thing that I've ever been through. Like the first time you lose the love of your life is always the hardest. Like nothing really compares after that. You're kind of fucking really kind of permanently wounded. You never really fully trust again, I think, the same way that you did the first time, because you don't know how bad you can get hurt. And so when we broke up, I was living in this apartment complex, and I had a good job. I was working at a recruiting firm. And so I had a good job. I had everything in the world going for me. But I psychologically, I was not coping well with the breakup. And I started fucking up at work and started getting in trouble. And I ended up getting fired from one job, and then I quickly got hired to another, but I was kind of all over the place. And so I started getting behind on bills. I had a bunch of furniture that my mom had put on a credit card for me, and I had made some friends in the area, and then I ended up basically losing another job, and so I was kind of up against it. And I had already gone to my dad for money a couple times, and he was kind of fucking done, loaning me money. And I had $600, which is what my rent was back in the day. This was 2001. I had a 1-bedroom apartment with a little study for $600 a month, and rent was due like the following day, and I had the cash out on like the bar in my apartment. And this guy that lived next door was over, and I woke up the next morning to go pay my rent, and the cash was gone. And I questioned dude about it, and he denied it, and I couldn't prove anything. I mean, he was the only fucking person that was there. And I was a very different person then, man. I weighed 130 pounds soaking wet. I didn't have a fucking ounce of aggression in me. I'd never been in any kind of fight. Like, I was just, I just, there was no, I didn't, there was no part of it, there was no fight in me at that point in my life. I was still a super fucking nerd. I'd never had any real life experience. You know, I was 19 years old, just barely out of high school. And I just kind of fucking quit, man. Like, I felt, you know, obviously abused and used, and I tried to go to my dad for money, and he wouldn't help me. And so I knew I was going to get evicted from my apartment. And I had a cousin that was living in Austin who I kind of grew up with. He was like 4 years older than me or something. And we kind of grew up together. We lived on the same street. I didn't really run around with the kids in high school that were my age. I was always hanging out with him and his friends. And he was living in Austin at the time. And he was always like, dude, you know, you should come to fucking Austin and you know, hang out or whatever. And so the night, that night basically that I knew I was fucked, the night that my rent went late, I called him and I was like, you know, is that invitation still on the table? And he's like, yeah, man, what's going on? And I told him what was going on. I was like, dude, I got to get out of here. And he was like, man, just come on. Just come on. And so I basically packed up what I could fit in my car. Just like the shit that I cared the most about. My computer, you know, some clothes, some books, like just personal possessions, whatever I could fit in my car. I had another friend that was living in the area at the time. He was actually, believe it or not, at the time, a DPD officer, Dallas police officer. I can tell a whole story about that guy. He ended up going to prison. Yeah, I probably should tell that story, maybe. He's kind of famous, actually, for going to prison as a Dallas police officer. But nevertheless, I contacted him. I was like, man, I'm basically like fucking, I'm leaving town. Like I met up with him. I gave him the key to my apartment. I said, just get everything out of there, sell it, do whatever you want to with it. I just don't even give a shit. Like I was just so fucking depressed and I don't know. I was just in a bad place and I was just kind of fucking lost, I guess. I didn't know what to do next. And so he did whatever with my apartment, and I fucking hit the road that night and drove straight to Austin. And so I stayed with my cousin for a couple of months, I think. I think it was like maybe 2. I was just sleeping on his futon. I didn't have a job. Like I was, you know, he was basically taking care of me, but it was putting him out, and you know, like. So I was just basically sitting around his apartment all day. At this point, I was only 20. Actually, I wasn't 21 yet. This was in 2000, and so I was still 20. And so, like, you know, he was 4 years older than me. Everywhere he went at night was bars and clubs and shit. And so, like, I was like a major hindrance for him. Like, I couldn't get into any of the bars or clubs. Like, I was basically in the way. And we had this other mutual friend named Dylan, who was just this fucking low-life guy, really, who lived in the neighborhood with us. He was like the career criminal in the neighborhood. He'd robbed everybody and their fucking mother. By the time he was out of high school, he had a rap sheet a mile long. But, you know, like, beggars can't be choosers, right? I had no place to go. I had no job. And I was really overstaying my welcome with my cousin. And I contacted Dylan. One of us contacted Dylan, and Dylan was also always in trouble. He didn't really have a job. He was living in a fucking shed, like a storage shed in his parents' backyard. They had like this big house, and he had a really young like sibling that they were basically letting him live in this storage shed, and they were paying him some like small amount of money for him to basically babysit his sibling during the day while they were gone to work or whatever, I guess was the deal. And he was like, you know, there's 2 couches in here, you can come crash with me. And so it's like, fuck, okay, you know, what else am I gonna do? I mean, there's a lot of things I could have fucking done, obviously. I could have fucking gotten a job, but I didn't. And so I drove back to Dallas with, again, the few possessions that I had, and I moved into this fucking storage shed with this other guy in the backyard of a house that was literally maybe a quarter of a mile from where my dad lived. maybe a quarter of a mile. I could probably hit a fucking golf ball out of that fucking backyard into my dad's yard. I guess that'd be a long shot, but it was close. And so that was actually pretty cool for a while. I don't remember how long I was there, but I was there long enough that the car I was driving was a 1994 Accord, and it was a stick shift. And this was 2000, and so it was only a 6-year-old car, but the clutch was going out on it. It needed to be replaced. And I had a history of not paying my car payment, my insurance, so my dad, again, was like fucking done fucking with me. And he would not help me with the clutch, and the car eventually broke down, and so I had it like towed back to my friend's, to the driveway that I was staying in, and I decided I was going to replace the clutch myself. So, meanwhile, I know fuck all about cars. I'd changed the oil and the spark plugs, and my dad had showed me how to change brake pads. That was the extent of my fucking mechanic knowledge at the time. And so I go to tearing the front end of this Honda Accord apart, trying to get to the clutch with this old manual. Used to be able to, before the internet, you could go to like AutoZone, and they sold these manuals that were like fucking Bible thick books practically, and it was just a breakdown of every single thing in that car. All the exploded diagrams, all the part numbers and everything. And so you're out there in the sweltering fucking heat in Texas getting chewed alive by mosquitoes, and I'm trying to tear apart the front end of this car to get to the clutch. And I've got this thing, I'm working on this for days. I've got it all torn apart in fucking pieces everywhere, all over the fucking place. And I forget where I got stuck. It was something to do with the axle or half shaft or some shit. There was some kind of bolt or nut that I couldn't get broken loose, or you needed a special tool. I don't remember what the fuck it was, but I got to a point where I could get no further. I couldn't get the clutch out of the car. Well, about this time, I come home. I was gone. I don't remember how I was even moving around. But I came back to the shed where we were living in, and Dylan comes walking out, and he's like, "Dude, we got robbed." I'm like, "Really? We got robbed? The storage shed in the back of your parents' fucking house inside their locked gate got robbed?" He's like, "Yeah, and they took your computer." My computer. That's all they took. So my computer was gone. This guy was a thieving piece of shit. He had broken into my car. I can't prove it, but like he broke into everybody's shit in the neighborhood 1,000 fucking times. And my car would just get broken into regularly. And someone would steal all of the car audio system. Like I used to put systems in my car, like 212s, 310s, JL audio subs, MB Quartz speakers in the doors. I was real into car audio when I was a kid, so I always had a system in my car, and this motherfucker would steal it, I guarantee you, and so insurance would pay out, and then I would end up getting a better system than I had before, and I'd have it for like a fucking year, and then he'd steal it again. And so I knew the guy was a thieving piece of shit, but again, you know, when you're down on your luck and you don't want to get a fucking job, and beggars can't be choosers, you gotta live where you can live. And it just so happened that the thing that he stole was like my fucking prized possession in the world. Like all I really wanted to do at that point in my life was be a writer, and I had so much of my writing from years and years, and everything that I cared about was backed up on that computer, and suddenly it was gone. And again, like, dude, there was just no fight in me. Like, I knew he fucking did it. I couldn't prove it. I wasn't gonna fucking beat his ass over, or try to beat his ass over a suspicion, but I couldn't fucking be around him anymore. And so I left basically. And I don't remember how I got a hold of my brother. I can't remember if I had a cell phone at the time. I probably had a cell phone. I called my brother, and I was like, "Dude, I need a place to fucking stay." And he's like, "What's going on?" And I told him what was going on. And at the time, he was working for a company called PTS, Professional Theater Systems, I think is what it was called. He was working for this speaker company. You guys may have heard of this or been victimized by this. Basically, what it was a company that they bought these home theater speakers. They were like towers. And they employed a bunch of fucking punk ass guys to drive around in these rental cars that they had, like Explorers, Expeditions, minivans. And the job was you would drive around and you would try to sell speakers to anybody you could sell them to. And so he had actually been doing this for a while, and he was making good money, and he had his own apartment. I thought it was fucking bullshit, but again, it's like, beggars can't be choosers. So he comes and picks me up. And I just leave my car in this fucking dude's driveway. My dad eventually stopped making the payment on the car and let it get repossessed. That's how fucking done with me he was. It was on his credit, and he let the shit get repossessed like that was going to prove some fucking point to me. Fucked his whole credit up, and they came and had to tow the whole thing in bits and pieces out of these people's driveway. And so I was crashing on my brother's couch, going to work with him at this speaker company. And the way this speaker company works is basically in the morning you go to this warehouse that is like fucking chock full of hundreds and hundreds of boxes of speakers. And you work in two-man teams, and you load up this SUV or this minivan with speakers, and you just drive around, and when you see somebody like the Mark, somebody that you think you can sell a set to, you roll up on them and you try to get them to roll their window down. You're like, hey man, hey, you want a set of speakers for your house? Dude, I just got 2 free on my delivery. My boss doesn't even know I have them. If he sees them, he's just gonna fucking take them. I gotta meet him in like 30 minutes at a delivery site down the street. I figure, fuck it, I'm just gonna sell them for cash. Like, if you went to an ATM, how much money could you get? And you just try to get this person to pull over on the side of the road, then you get out and you show them these speakers, all on the pretense that you got them for free. We carried these magazines around where our boss ran ads in the magazine that claimed that each one of the speakers was worth $1,500. So $3,000 a pair, like real high quality ads, real professional looking. So we get this guy to the back of the truck and we're like, look, dude, these things are worth $3,000. Check out this ad right here. We had these fake delivery tickets where we would show like, man, look, I was supposed to get 2 speakers, and the guys on the dock, they fucked up and they put on 2 pairs. So I've got 2 extra. I gotta meet my boss in 30 fucking minutes. If he sees these extra speakers, he's just gonna fucking take them. So I figure, fuck it, I'll just sell them. He's never gonna know. And they're like, no, bro, I don't want the, I can't afford them. I'm like, no, I'm not trying to get $3,000, dude. That's crazy. I'm just like, figure ATM cash, like what could you get? Like right now, like if you hit the ATM, how much could you get? And you just try to convince this person to give you an offer. The deal was that the speakers cost us, basically, we had to pay the company $230 a set. So anything that we got above and beyond $230, we would split between the 2 of us. So, if you sell the set for $500, you get, what is that, $270? That's what you split between the 2 of you. Well, if you can do that 6 times a day, you're doing pretty fucking good. Sometimes you only sell the set for $300, and so you're not splitting very much money. But that was the job. The first time I watched my brother do this, like, I thought we were gonna get shot. Like, he was so aggressive with this old man. He talked this old man over to get, to looking at the speakers, and this guy's like, no, dude, I don't want them. And my brother's like, yeah, man, you could get them. And he just picks these fucking speakers up and tries to put them in this fucking guy's car. And the guy's just standing there like, what the fuck is going on? And that was my first real taste of like the real world, or like the seedy underworld, like whatever you want to call it. I got to the point where we got so good at this that like we could sell somebody that absolutely didn't want, like the number of times that I had somebody at the back of my fucking truck that was saying, no, dude, I don't want the speakers. And I would just be like, yeah, you're fucking taking them. And I would take them and put them in the back seat of their fucking car and go, let's go to the ATM. And they would be so nervous and like unsure. They would just go to the ATM and pull fucking cash out. So like, it was just a fucking massive hustle. And so that's what we were doing for a while. And I was staying on his fucking couch, and we were selling speakers, and it was actually pretty cool. This is when 9/11 happened, and I remember waking up the morning of, and my brother woke me up. I was sitting on his couch, and he's like, dude, somebody flew a plane into a fucking building. And I'm like, delirious, like, what? Shut up. And, we're sitting there watching, and like, oh my God, like, this is fucking crazy. And then, like, we're sitting there and watched it live when the second fucking plane hit. And And it was a trip, and we're like, well, fuck, we got to go to work. And so we go down to the office, and they're watching it on TV. It was a fucking crazy day. My brother actually ended up selling what was called a single grand that day. He convinced somebody to give him $1,000 for one pair of speakers. He made like $1,200 that day alone. Well, there was this other guy who worked for the company. His name was Nick. And Nick was like a low down, scandalous, scheming motherfucker. My brother was balling out of control working for this company. He was making anywhere between $500 and $1,000 a day on average. Like, there'd be good days, bad days, but he was making six figures working at this company. And so he was putting a lot of cash away because he just had a little apartment. He had a fucking a brand new Tahoe. You know, he was just like nice clothes and shit. I was making a couple of fucking bucks. I was nowhere near as good as him at that point. He'd been doing it longer than me, and he just had a fucking knack for it, honestly. My brother was pretty fucking scandalous guy. And so, basically what happened is that Nick got to the source. So he found out that where these speakers were coming from in China, and he brokered a deal where we could go around the company that we were working for, and we could buy direct from the supplier in China if we bought a container. I think was the deal. We had to buy an entire container full of speakers, and they would do business with us as long as we would buy in volume. And so he negotiated the deal with my brother. I think my brother put up 10 grand. It was supposed to be my brother was putting up 10 grand, Nick was putting up 10 grand, and they were buying $20,000 worth of speakers, and then they would have them, and then we were all going to go into business for ourselves. Because at the price we were buying the speakers for, our cost, so like working for the company, our cost was $230 a set. So two guys sell a set of speakers, they split whatever they can get above and beyond $230 is what you split. When we found out we could buy direct, our cost per set dropped to $60 a set. So now two guys are splitting the difference of anything you get over $60. We were routinely selling sets for $500 a pair. So right there you can see this is a hell of a lot of extra money that you're going to be able to make. So my brother felt like he was going to be able to recoup his investment very quickly. And so basically what happened is my brother and his buddy that worked for the company, we all quit together. 4 of us quit together. My brother was running with this guy, and I was running with this guy, Nick. And Nick just so happened to be a fucking meth dealer on the side. I had never had a drug problem in my life. I had tried weed. I didn't really like it at all. I did it a few times when I was like 17. And then I did a little blow with Shauna because she really liked it. And like I had fun doing it. You know, like I would do blow for the night, but then I was done. Like it didn't hook me. She was massively addicted to it and was one of the things that led to our breakup. I finally had to put a stop to it because we couldn't afford it. She would just do it, and like I would do it for one night and I'd be sick and just want to go to fucking bed and feel like shit the next day. I didn't have any drug addictions at the time. Nothing had really got me until crystal meth. And one day I was working with Nick, and he was smoking. I knew he did it. I watched him do it, and it looked nasty. I wasn't into smoking anything. And one day he was always trying to give it to me. He was like, "Hey man, you want to try this? You want to try this?" I was like, "No, no, no." And then one day I don't remember what it was or why it happened, but he was like, "You know, you could snort it." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" Because I kind of like snorting coke. I don't know why. I enjoyed it, but you know, it made me sick eventually, being up all fucking night not eating. And he was like, "You know, you could snort it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so he's like, "Here, just try it. Just try it. You're going to like it." So he breaks me out. And this was back in the day. I'm not going to go into the details, but it was the good, pure fucking shards. The shit that I found later in life is trash. After they got rid of ephedra, again, I'm not going to get into the chemistry and get in trouble, but it was really fucking good. And so he cracks out this little tiny line of, shards, and I fucking take it to the dome, and boom, you know, if you've ever done it, you know, like your face catches on fire as it just burns as it goes in, and then whoa, I fucking came alive for the first time in my life. It was on me. The way they say that you can get addicted to a drug the first time you do it, in 99% of cases, I think that's fucking bullshit. Unfortunately, that is exactly what the fuck happened to me. That first line melted into my nose and burned across my face, and I had never felt anything like that in life, and I was absolutely fucking on board from that day. And this dude took full fucking advantage. He was just feeding me a little bit at a fucking time, you know. And when you first start, you have no tolerance. It doesn't take much at all. Like, you can be up all night on nothing. And so we were rolling together. We were selling speakers. I was getting high as a fucking kite, and I ended up. It was more convenient for me to just live with him. He had a really nice apartment in this area called Addison Circle, which is North Dallas. I don't know what it's like now. It was like brand new. It was really hip at the time. It was where all like the fucking single co-eds lived. It was the fucking place to be in Dallas at the time. So we had this super badass apartment overlooking the pool. We were making good fucking money. And I'm getting high as a kite, and I feel like I'm on top of the fucking world. And that's when the shit started to hit the fan. So lo and behold, we're making all this money, we're selling all these fucking speakers, and this container that we have is dwindling rapidly. And my brother starts to become suspicious that something's not adding up. The money that's been invested doesn't seem to be rendering the amount of product that should be here, and Nick keeps promising my brother that another container is on the way. Well, one thing leads to another, and it becomes apparent that my brother got hustled. That Nick never put up 10 grand. Nick didn't have 10 grand. The reason he went to my brother, because my brother was young and dumb and trustworthy, and he was entrepreneurial. He wanted to fucking make his own way in the world. He didn't want to work for the fucking company that he was working for. He was the best salesman in the company, and he knew he could make a hell of a lot more money on his own. And he trusted Nick and gave Nick $10,000, and Nick bought $10,000 worth of speakers, not $20,000. And so now it comes time to pay the fucking piper. And so my brother's basically, he's been making money, but he's basically out half. And Nick basically tells him, like, yeah, dude, I fucked you. And, like, what are you going to do about it? Dude was big, dude, and scary motherfucker, like, just low down, scandalous motherfucker. My brother was like me. He didn't have a fucking ounce of fight in him. He was just like a fucking skinny little pothead kid. And he was fucked. Like, what are you gonna do? Call the cops? Like, you could fight the guy? Like, you know, again, like, dude, we were young, stupid, and skinny and little, and there was just no fight in us. And so my brother basically was like, dude, fuck you. You know, I'm not, obviously, like, fuck you, deal's over. Luckily, my brother had, you know, still had scratch. He still had money, so he was able to recover. He got to the source himself and went into business for himself. And he tried to get me to abandon Nick. But Nick was the one that was feeding me. I didn't have dope of my own. Nick didn't give me dope. I got all the dope that I wanted whenever I needed it, but it was because I was standing right next to him. And when push came to shove, I chose my fucking addiction over my brother. And he walked away, and Nick and I walked away. And that fucked up the relationship that my brother and I had real bad for obvious fucking reasons. And so now it's me and Nick alone, and my brother's completely out of the picture, and Nick doesn't have enough speakers, so he's having to fucking hustle to try to get back on top because he doesn't have my brother bankrolling him anymore. And so this is when I find out that he's got a bunch of other scams running on the side. He was scamming Walmart, Target, and Dillard's and Macy's and all these big name stores. And my clock is about to run out, so when I come back for part 2, I will tell you all the scandalous shit that Nick was doing to get us flush so that we could get speakers again and go back to business. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.